Clocky, you're going to China. Time to head back to your birthplace town. Oh, ni hao, YouTube.
KB, Watershed, America's favorite YouTube show.
It's the 14th night here in China. I'm here in Shanghai. It's the final night here. In less than 12 hours, I'll be flying back home to New York. And on this trip, besides the people, the history, and the scenery, one of the greatest things has been the food. I've got a close friend who was in China not too long ago, and he said he got sick of eating all Chinese food after just a few days. That has not been my experience at all. I could go on eating Chinese food for, I think, several more weeks, if not indefinitely. I've loved the food. It's been one of my favorite aspects of this trip. And in this video here, I'm going to look back at the last few meals. And I've got some photos of them that I'll share. I've skipped over those in the past few videos, so now we'll look back and cover a bunch of meals and some interesting ones all together at once. So where did we leave off? We left off in Suzhou. Since then, first there was the Suzhou train station where I was stuck for a while, so I got a lunch there. I went to a noodles restaurant, and they spoke no English at all, which, as you know, was a theme in Suzhou. So using a translation book, I was able to ask for noodles and chicken, and they asked me big chicken, or at least I think that's what they were saying. So I was like, all right, yeah, sure, fine. So noodles and big chicken, here's what they gave me. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? This was actually really good. For train station food, this was a great lunch. Filling, tasted good, the chicken was fine, the noodles were excellent. I'm going to give this meal an A. Really no complaints with any of the noodles that I've had here during this trip, and this was no exception. Then in Wuzhen, at the Wuzhen guest house, so there are all these authentic restaurants all along the canals on the water. At the one where I went for dinner, I ordered, first of all, a bacon-steamed crucian carp dish. So here's that. Can you see it? Can you see it? It was very good. It was delicious. Now, fish on the bone is very big here. I guess the idea is that it's fresher. You know, they show you the fish before you cook it, and they're like, you good with this fish? And you're like, well, I don't have much choice. Sure, that looks good to me. And then they cook it, and it's, very fresh fish, which is a big thing. And I don't know, they're big on having the fish on the bone, and it just makes it a lot more work than having a cleaned, deboned fish served to you. And even the bacon had bones in it. That being said, it did taste very good, even though it took a lot of effort to eat it. Next up, I ordered what was called a mycophenolate steamed shrimp dish. And here's the picture. Can you see it? Can you see it? I was expecting larger shrimp. I know that's a bit of an oxymoron. These guys were tiny, and you had to peel them. So again, it was a lot of work, very messy, and a lot of work peeling these tiny shrimp for just an M&M's worth of shrimp meat. Now again, they tasted very good. They were well seasoned. And there was a lot of them, but it was really a lot of work to eat each one. And then I also ordered a dried shrimp soup. That also seems a bit oxymoronical because the shrimp were in soup, so they really were not dry, they were wet. That being said, the soup was delicious. It was a really good soup. I also had a couple Cheer Day beers. Now the two big Chinese beers, at least in this region, are Cheer Day and Tsingtao. I've had a bunch of those over the course of this trip. They're very light, very low alcohol content, so nothing really to write home about, but they're fine, and that's what I had with this meal. So here's the photo. Can you see it? Can you see it? And because it was so much work peeling and eating the tiny shrimp and picking all the bones out of the carp and out of the bacon, I left this meal still feeling a bit hungry, so I also stopped at a pastry shop in Wuzhen and got a few pastries. So here are the photos of those. Here's a fruit pastry. Can you see it? Can you see it? And this second one is called a rad beam. I'm not sure what exactly that means. It kind of tasted like a rye bread. It was fine. Bread in China in general, I found is not too spectacular. I think we in the West no baking, maybe a little better. I'm sorry if I offend any Eastern bakers by saying that, but I think it's a fair statement that bread, pastries in general, that's one of the things I miss from the U.S. and New York, and I'll look forward to getting some good New York-style breads, bagels, pizzas, and pastries once I'm back home. But the pastries in Wuzhen, they were fine. They did fill me up after what was a light seafood meal at the Wuzhen restaurant. Overall, I'm going to give the Wuzhen restaurant a B. Good flavor, but just a lot of work eating it. And they also, they had this big menu, but a few things that I tried to order, they said they were out of, or it was too much work to cook them. It would take too long. So a B for the Wuzhen dinner. All right, let's move on now to breakfast the following morning in the Wuzhen guest house. So the way this works in the Wuzhen guest house, they have a hotel where it's a bit more ritzy and they have hotel restaurants. I was staying in one of the guest houses, and there's a family who lives there, and you're essentially their guest, and you sleep in a guest room. And when you check in, they give you a menu that you check off what you want to have for breakfast the following morning, and then they cook it for you at the time that you select. So they offer things like eggs and bacon, but I can get eggs and bacon back home in the USA, and I think we probably do eggs and bacon and hash browns and toast better than anyone else in the world. So although I love an English-style breakfast or an American breakfast, in Wuzhen I wanted to get a bit more adventurous. So I ordered first this soft, spongy pastry, which I think is called a dowry cake or a Mary Girl cake. This was fantastic. I think in hindsight, I wish I would have just ordered 3 of these instead of 3 different things. It was, again, very spongy, a little bit wet, but delicious, and it had this amazing filling. As I was eating it, I thought it was maybe a chocolate paste filling. Now that I've looked it up on the internet, I think it was actually a lotus seed paste filling. Whatever it was really good. Definitely the highlight of this breakfast. The other thing that you're seeing on this plate is a steamed bun. That was fine. I've had steamed buns before, and again, breads, rolls here in the East, are not exactly what I'm used to, but this steamed bun was fine, and I used it as bread to sop up the other item that I ordered, which is what you'll see now here. Can you see it? Can you see it? Now this is a fried rice ball sliced with sliced pork and vegetables, some kind of a spinach and also a celery. This was pretty good. The rice ball was not exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting something a bit crunchier when I saw that it was fried. This was very rubbery, kind of flavorless. The pork, when I saw sliced pork, I thought it would be something closer to like a Canadian bacon. There was very little pork in the dish. It was really just a tiny bit of pork, just a smattering of pork, really just for flavor. The vegetables were good. I didn't finish this. It was not my favorite thing I've had here, but at least it was home cooked. The family whose house I stayed in, who cooked this breakfast, was very nice. Although they didn't speak a word of English, they tried to communicate using hand signals and whatnot. There was also some local fruit, some apples and grapes, orange juice and coffee with this breakfast. So all in all, a good home-cooked breakfast, although, again, there were some aspects of it that I didn't love. I'm going to give this breakfast a B-. I don't know that I'd order any of these things again. Maybe the dowry cake, but, just not my favorite breakfast I've ever had. Alright, so that was it in Wuzhen. Then I was back here in Shanghai, and last night, the dinner here in Shanghai was
Yummy, 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 I got love in my tummy, and I feel like I'm loving you. Love you such a sweet thing, good enough to eat.
Next time on the KP Watershed channel.
For those who have light stomachs, brace yourself, or maybe skip over this part of the video. Deep fried bullfrog.
It's KP Watershed.